Today I'm going to make a traditional Southern casserole in a really non-traditional way. I'm going to use one of the unsung heroes of the vegetable world. It's high in vitamin C, vitamin B6, manganese, magnesium, potassium, which you may realize from electrolytes that you need. It's also super high in antioxidants, including beta-carotene. Traditionally, this casserole is made with a can of that Campbell's condensed chicken soup, or as I like to call it, inflammation in a can. But that's the traditional Southern way to make it, so I gotta make it a lot healthier than that. So you're gonna have a casserole that's full of healthy fiber, vitamins and minerals, and a lot of good healthy fats instead of that canned stuff. So what is this unsung and underutilized hero of the vegetable world? Well, it's the yellow squash. So yeah, that was a squash in my pocket, and I'm happy to see you. Stick around. So this recipe is enough for a 9x13 baking dish or casserole dish. So you could easily split this up into two parts. You could easily cut it in half if you didn't want this much, or make it and freeze half. I'm making this ahead of time so I can sit in the refrigerator and I can cook it when I'm ready for it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is spray down this casserole dish with some avocado oil and set that off to the side. And then this is about 2.5 pounds of squash, and I'm just gonna slice this into pieces. I'll cut the ends off and toss those or compost them if you compost. Whatever you like to do with your ends of squash. And you wanna slice these into pretty even slices like this. They're about this thick. And so you wanna get them kind of uniform so that they'll cook evenly. We're gonna cook these down before we put together the casserole. And if these are really big ones like this, I'll cut these in half. And you can even dice them up if you want to. So I'm gonna run through and slice all these up, and I'll see you as soon as I'm done. I'm just heating up my hex-clad pan over medium heat, and I've got half a stick of butter or 4 tablespoons. This is salted butter to go right in here. I'm gonna melt that down, and then I'm gonna throw this squash in and cook it. Now once that butter's melted down pretty good, I'll go ahead and dump the squash in. Now squash is really high in water content too. Make sure you cook these down for a few minutes. It's gonna take somewhere around maybe 8 or 10 minutes. Let the ones on the bottom kind of cook down a little, stir it up. Now while this is cooking down, I'm gonna go ahead and shred up my cheese. I'm gonna need 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar, and always shred it from the block. Don't buy any of that stuff in the bag because it's got the anti-caking agents. It's not gonna melt as good, and your results won't be anywhere near great. I'm using an extra sharp cheddar here, but use whatever cheddar you like. And then 1 cup of this mozzarella cheese. Now this is part skim, low moisture. This is what I use in just about all my recipes because I really like the way that cheese pulls, and it's just yummy like that. But I'm gonna use about 1 cup of that. But wait, there's more. So just move it around the pan, and if you get a little brown one like this every once in a while, well, bonus, that's just some extra flavor. And once this is almost done cooking, I'm gonna go in with about 89 cloves of garlic here. Now I can't say for sure if vampires are real, but what I can tell you is there's none been spotted within 5 miles of here. You know we're serious about garlic when we buy it like this. And I know, listen, you can take the cloves, you can mince them yourself and all that, blah, blah, blah. But for the extra 30 minutes, I think I'd like to take my spoon and give it a good dose right in there like that. Plus then my hands don't smell like garlic, and you know, as great as garlic smells to me, it's not the best cologne. Now once this squash is all nice and soft, we're gonna go ahead and take it off the heat, and I'll show you how to make the tastiest part of the casserole. Normally Old Yeller only likes to make an appearance on dessert videos nowadays, but talking them into coming out for this one because it's just that special. So in Old Yeller, I got a whole 8-ounce block of cream cheese, and to that I'm gonna add 1 cup of sour cream in. See how exact that measurement was? I think I'm pretty close though. I'm just gonna mix this together with a whisk for some plastic on plastic action. Now I know some people say, well, you make some health and wellness content too. Why are you advocating mixing anything in a plastic bowl? Why don't you use glass? Why don't you use metal? You just don't realize the significance of Old Yeller, and you need to be educated. And then I'm gonna add in some salt and pepper to taste, even though I'm not tasting it. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And then you need a teaspoon of some onion powder, I used the wrong side of this thing, now it's stuck. See, the nice thing about these measuring spoons, if you use the right side, one part circular, and for these little narrow things, you got this one. That's the one I needed to use. Oh well, it worked out okay. I add in a little bit more for good measure. Or I guess you'd say bad measure, because it's not measure. Anyway. And a teaspoon of garlic powder, just for a little extra garlic. Vampires. And now don't tell anybody my secret ingredient, but it's this Worcestershire sauce. I'm just gonna add about a tablespoon of that in there. That's gonna make that umami flavor that's in that condensed soup that's so bad, but tastes so good. This is gonna replace that flavoring in there. If you don't use Worcestershire, that's fine. Use a coconut aminos, a soy sauce, a fish sauce, whatever you use that gives it that kind of flavor. It's good stuff. Then go in with half a cup of a grated Parmesan cheese, or you can grate it yourself if you want, although we're gonna do a little more of that at the end. And just give this a good mix together as best you can. Now, pro tip here, if you want a great dip, this makes a great dip also, even if you don't make this squash. Then I'm gonna take this squash. If there's any liquid in there, try to drain it off the best you can, or just don't put it in there. But this is still hot. I'm gonna go in here and it's gonna start to melt that down just a little bit. Keep as much of the liquid in the pan as you can, but try to get all the garlic. So that's a slippery slope. There's one for tasting. Then just give this a good mix together. Try to go ahead and get this combined as well as you can. Give it a taste for the seasoning. And make sure you don't use too much salt in the beginning, because I'm gonna go in with a cup right now of some pork panko. This is gonna soak up some of that fat, and it's gonna add a little fat of its own to it. And you can store them in these containers and keeps it fresh so you can make a bunch at one time. And I'll put my video up above to the way I make it. It's just super easy. And also, if you've made any of my condensed cream of mushroom soup, you could add that in instead of this mixture that I just came up with. And I'll put a link to that video up above somewhere and down in the description also, if you want more of the traditional Southern style. Make sure you got enough of these left over, because we're also gonna top it with it in a little bit. After you got that mixed up really, really well, just dump it right into this casserole dish. Oh man, we're gonna be eating good tonight, I'm telling you. Then just flatten this out as best you can. Make sure those little squashes are nice and buried down in some of this casserole goodness. It's almost like frosting a cake here or something. Then I got this little tiny block of Parmesan I'm just gonna start grating right over the top here. It's kind of gonna be a blocker in between that squash casserole layer and the layer of pork breadcrumbs. They're gonna make it nice and crispy on top. Just a nice light little dusting, and I like to use one of these smaller graters. That gives it a great texture. Or just use the stuff in the container like I used earlier. This little tiny block of Parmesan, I figure I shouldn't let it go to waste, right? And then right over the top, some of these pork breadcrumbs. And then last but not least, just go over the top with a little bit of paprika, just to give it a nice color. You could even use smoked paprika if you wanted to. And then I'm just gonna put some foil over this. I'm gonna throw it in the fridge. And then when I get ready to cook it, I'll preheat my oven to 350. So to go along with this squash casserole, I'm gonna do a ham. I was about to make my heavenly ham knockoff, well, honey baked ham, I guess. But then I saw this video that just came out from Annie over at Keto Focus. So I figured, hey, let me make her recipe and see how it is. And it was a recipe she did that was handed down from her mother's mother. And I love stuff like that. So I figure, hey, let me try to make this and I'll let you know how it is. And I'll put a link to her video down below, but I didn't have a fancy rack like she had. So I'm using my Instant Pot rack to kind of hold up this ham. Make sure you check out her video for all the directions on how to do this. But when I watched the video, I was kind of intrigued and I thought it would be a really, really good ham. So I'll let you know in just a little bit. And I'm gonna put one of my Tyfer Quattro probes down in there to get it to the exact temperature she says. And it'll also tell me how far away this is from being done, so I can time my squash casserole, which is gonna go in for 45 minutes. I'm gonna throw it in my 350-degree oven, and I'll see you in a few minutes. So my temperature probe says it's 39 minutes till we're done, and this ham needs to rest for a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the casserole in, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Save the foil for later. So the timer just went off and the ham's done, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that out. And I can tell you one thing, if this tastes as good as it smells, this is gonna be a treat right here. So that's gonna sit and rest for about 10, 15 minutes. We got 10 minutes left on this squash casserole, so I'll be right back to show you what it looks like. I mean, look at this ham right here. Another nice thing about using this Instant Pot piece, you can just transfer it right over here, just like that. I mean, that is a beautiful looking ham right there. So I'll just cut a couple slices of this ham. And then our squash casserole. Look at that. That is the good stuff. So I'll just take a little bit of this squash casserole. Right on the plate. And then we'll serve these with a couple of deviled eggs. And I'll put a link to those right up here somewhere and down in the description. And this is gonna be an awesome meal. Maybe just a little more squash. All right, let's give the squash casserole a try. I'm just telling you right now, if you weren't a squash fan before, you will be now. And if you want a great macaroni and cheese recipe, use these noodles by Kaizen. I've talked about them before. They say even fewer carbs right here. Make sure you get the green ones and check out this recipe right here.